On September 11th, 35 people came to our home to learn about the 10,000 Kites Project, the 10,000 Kites Project for Peace in the Middle East, and also to meet the two artists who are involved intimately with the project, Adi Yukultiele, the Israeli, and Yahya Kamel, the Palestinian artist, Adi's colleague.
And the idea is to get as many people as we can involved in this project, and most of them are thrilled about it. They love it.
The goal is 10,000 people, 5,000 on each side of the wall, flying kites, and these kites will fly higher than the wall. The wall at some point is 36 feet tall. It's 3.5 stories. I see it from a political point of view, which is a critical mass can be developed. There will be 10,000 people flying kites on a certain day at a certain hour.
And then a few weeks ago, probably about a month and a half ago, I was in a conference of dialogue groups in Israel and Palestine, and I met this other artist named George, who's Palestinian, and I just heard a story of Yael, a good friend of mine, a few days before, and she said she was driving by Kalkilia, by a Palestinian town, and she saw a lot of army and a lot of tanks because there was some kind of a tension going on, and then she saw this little kid holding a kite. So when she told me that, I said, well, why don't we take that metaphor and create a project where 10,000 people at the same time in 200 different communities, you know, spanning 500 kilometers along the wall, but also in their own communities, will each paint what they want to say to the person on the other side. You know, at this point, there's absolutely no voice for this.
If you can imagine 10,000 kites rising at the same time over the span of the 500-kilometer wall, it will be in every newspaper in the world the next day.
Everything in our world is political, but we wanted to create something that is a very wide common denominator. That people will say, we'd rather talk or say something than to do this cycle, only the cycle of violence, revenge, violence, revenge.
I recently was speaking with an artist in Israel, and he said, I like the idea of the kites because the energy for change in my country is at its lowest level. People don't know what to do to say no to what is going on in their government.
This conversation for too long has been made only by the unsuccessful leaders of this region, of our region. They're from a generation and they're from a history that cannot progress at all, you know. And even during the Intifada, when I used to talk to friends of mine who are Palestinians, they always talked about, you know, why don't they give us actually permission to our generation to negotiate? Well, of course they'll never give us permission. So where does that leave us? How do you communicate your desires, your hopes?
This is a non-political activity, flying a kite, simply expressing the human common hope shared by both people, shared by peoples of the world, but certainly by these neighbors who want to again be neighbors, who don't have different agendas, who want to live with their families, who want to live with a decent way of life. It can happen, and it can be a grassroots movement thanks to art.
Because in the Palestinian side, the kids hungry for art, you know. They have not, since the first Intifada, second Intifada, they don't know art. They love, you know, so art and color and everything. I think they will understand that, bring them a little bit more. Especially for the kids, I told Eddie that bring joy for them. Because any kid like to fly a kite, you know.
Yes.
And when you fly it, when you be free, and then you can express anything, you know, your message.
Art is a vehicle for people who are disenfranchised, people who have been cut out of the political process, to have a platform, a vehicle, to tell the world who they are.
So Adi went, he just got on a plane and he went and he spent some time with Christo. Anyway, Christo did make a lovely statement about him, which I'm going to read so I get it right. It is rare to meet a young artist with a mature aesthetic and a professional language. Adi Yakutieli shows the signs of a courageous and energetic individual.
When I met Christo, one of the things that he was talking to me about was that he said, you know, the concept is something that is very clear. Anybody can imagine this variation or that variation. But he said, but you should also produce artwork, documenting it from a concept to actually doing it, and then there will be the photographs of the real thing.
Whoa, that's great.
Now it may not look like that, but it will feel like that.
Hold it up.
This is the size. You have to realize that this wall is 36 feet high.
Great.
It doesn't only protect you from a point of security, it wipes the other person completely. It wipes the other community. Some of these walls go inside in the middle of Palestinian neighborhoods. You know, somebody used to go to work for 5 minutes, now they have to go 3 hours. You know, and here's another way of how this looks. The wall, it's all in process of building. Okay, eventually we'll create canteens for the Palestinians, that on one hand they'll be imprisoned in them, but I think the Israel will be imprisoned in that thing too.
I'm going to read a letter of endorsement for the 10,000 Kites project from Yael Nativ, who is the director of the Israeli-Palestinian organization Cross-Cultural Dialogue and Arts in the Community. She writes, the 10,000 Kite project elevates my and other people's personal hopes. It creates a new wave of positive energy that can touch many people in the region after months of desperation and a sense of hopelessness. 10,000 Kites will present a platform for a mass of people to show their thoughts and their statements, hopes and their dreams. 10,000 kites will fly over and beyond the endless wall that stretches between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and will bring the world a message of a powerful human trust. And now write your checks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Imagine 10,000 kites flying for peace, coming from both sides of the wall on the same hour, the same day, in the spring of 2005. You know what? It's going to happen.